Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the Malice Experience. I am Mr. Malice, and as always,
As always.
over here to my left, my right, depending on what fucking direction you're looking, is Mystic Salon.
Very mystical salon. Mystic hair. That's my new name.
Well, so if you can't tell, everybody, we got a new overlay. I smashed this out today, really quick. Going for like a cleaner, simpler theme without all the shit that's over our faces. So it's easier for you guys to see the tarot cards. It's easier for you guys to see me. So everything is kind of like, just easier to see. So welcome to the Malice Experience. And, well, as always, Mystic is going to lead us off here into the evening with a tarot review. It might be too small for you guys to see, so get your
I'm not going to do that one.
Okay, I was gonna say get your
I got
fucking
another
magnifying
one.
glasses out.
Yeah. Although I might mention it just for the heck of it because it's a cute little novelty. So,
Go for it.
and hi, Noella. So tonight, this is definitely a different tarot deck. I've had it for a very long time. I absolutely love it. I used it today. I've used it a couple times before, and it kind of comes around in cycles, but it's the Wildwood Tarot. I highly recommend this, especially for earth-based people who are really into nature and maybe even be into something like druidry, things like that. This is just a beautiful deck. I'll show you the front box cover. That is actually part of the inspiration for my tattoo on my back that I have, which one day I'll probably show. I don't have many pictures of it, but this is the Wildwood Tarot. It is by Mark Ryan and John Matthews. John Matthews is a very well known in Celtic and Welsh circles as far as pagan and druidry. So really big into that. John Matthews and his wife Caitlin Matthews have written every book that is recommended for somebody who's getting into their roots from that perspective, the Celtic, um, Welsh, those areas. So and druidry too. Lots of really good stories. So very good authors. This tarot deck is a regular tarot deck 78. It uses a couple of different names for the suits. So instead of pentacles, it has stones. Instead of wands, it has arrows. Instead of um, the other one, the cups, it's vessels. So there's a lot of different kind of terminology. This is one, as always, I don't recommend, and I don't generally read the book, but the foreword and the introduction to this book is a must read. And the intros to each of the chapters, they're broken up by the what do you call it? The suits and the major and minor arcana. Also recommend highly reading that. There, it's very good information, really well done. Lots of quotes that kind of support. This is actually a second iteration tarot. The original one is called the Greenwood Tarot. I want one so bad, but the cheapest one I have found so far is $1,584 because it's been out of print for 30 years.
God damn.
And as much of a hoarder as I am, that's not likely that I will be getting that deck. Um, at least with anybody knowing. So, beautiful deck. I mean, it really is. It's the back of the deck, it is reversible. I like that. It's one of my favorite things. One thing I don't like, as we have talked about before, is borders, but this one's not too bad. It's a pretty small border and the words on it are just the suit and all that stuff, so it's not too bad. Imagery is also probably not my favorite personal imagery that speaks to me. However, what they've done with this deck is they've really built into the imagery something that really drives you to figuring out what the potential practice is that matches what's going on in the card. So that's also very nice for new readers. So very nice. So we're gonna do a like we did before, a weekly reading. We're going to talk about a couple of the energies that are kind of moting around um, life. Can't think of a better word. So, um, sorry, I'm a little. My bartender showed up. Give me a break.
He actually showed up to work this time.
Mm-hmm. He got his tip before the drink, so.
There you go.
So our first card tonight is the Six of Stones. So in a traditional tarot deck, that's going to be your Six of Pentacles. See if we can get this here. The Six of Stones, if you look at it, basically you're looking at what appears to be a fire in the background. You've got 6 stones with beehives on it, and 2 people in front of it that pretty much look like beggars, right? So the message from the Six of Stones is really about resource management and exploitation of the world around you. So right now, and this is a hot topic anyway, the energy that we're kind of trying to pull away from is exploitation of information, of the world, of the universe, of the things that are around us. The fact that you have 2 beggars in this picture are people that are like literally looking, I need more, yet you have one of the most valuable resources behind you, nutrition, these honey hives
Mm-hmm.
with the honey in them, right? Honey is antibiotic, antiseptic, it's nourishing, it can provide calories, it can be used for treatment in wounds. It does so many amazing things, yet these individuals have all that and they're still looking for more while the world burns behind them. So in a metaphorical sense, it's looking at, pay attention to what you're doing in your life that could potentially be exploitative. Use a little bit less. Find things that are natural to your area, local to the time. One of the things that our group does that I find really interesting, it's new to me, is finding out what things are local to your area and in season at certain times. Because when you purchase things out of season, it costs money to transport it, gas, blah 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 blah. So very hippie-ish, but it's still beautiful. Beautiful way to think about it. And it's not just those things, it's your mind, your thought process. Are you potentially overusing somebody else's energy? Are you weighing somebody down or somebody weighing you down and you need to either cut that line and separate it out or pay attention to maybe ways to use less from other people? And it's going to make a lot of sense too. I think with this next card, the 10 of Vessels. So Vessels is our cups water card. This is a happiness card. Like it is truly, if you look at most tens except the 10 of Swords anyway, generally speak of happiness and fulfillment of whatever element that you're in. So this would be the element of fulfillment emotionally. But it's really talking kind of about that inner happiness that you have that pulls through other people and shines out to other people. We get really unicorn vomiting on this one. Um, because there's something else I'm noticing that I want to point out. But anyway, so this is our current energy. We're cutting away the exploitation. We're going to pay attention over the next couple weeks, and probably for the rest of our life, we should do this. Um, pay attention to the resources you're using. Don't waste shit. That's easy. Let's cut that out and let's move in towards this area of where, even in things that are difficult, which is coming up in the next card that we're going to talk about because there's a challenge. Um, the next week or so, a huge challenge. Um, but we're going to need to present that challenge with indifference. So it means even if you want to react or have a certain reaction to something, that we need to do it with flat face. Stay calm, stay even. Don't overreact emotionally because that's what vessels want you to do. And if you do that, there will be a fulfillment at the end of it. So our current energy we need to do is cutting away that exploitation of the earth and bringing in that happiness of the water and the emotion energy that's around us. Now, the third card, Two of Stones, this would be like a Two of Pentacles. Boy, that really knocked my face out, didn't it? That was funny. My camera's trying, man. Obviously, in this particular picture, you see 2 hares fighting on top of 2 stones. So we're talking about, which many twos do, talk about confrontation or conflict or 2 sides of something, but in different ways. In this particular one, the challenge is going to be a direct confrontation the next couple weeks. So in our current energy, that confrontation is going to come. And how we deal with it is just because one person loses or wins that conflict doesn't make one higher, taller, better, more than the other. It just means that particular specific conflict is going to have a not going to come together. There's not going to be a together answer for that, and that's going to require a indifference walk away. And when you look at these three cards together, the thing I wanted to point out earlier that I mentioned earlier is we have a six of stones. So we have stones, we have water in the middle, and then we have two of stones on the end. So if you're looking at patterns, which I do a lot, especially with the universe, when I'm trying to pull energy or thinking about what's going on, I'm noticing that we have earth on the side, water in the middle. What does that look like? That looks like a river, right? You have a river with water in the middle, and you have the stones on the outside. And both of these stones are not happy stones. So you have an embankment, and this embankment is what's driving the water in the middle. So earth is driving and carving the water out, right? And so this river is supposed to be of happiness, yet we have exploitation and challenge on both ends of it. In order to get that river to not be so whitewater rapids as it may feel over the next week, we have to lessen the exploitation and maintain balance in the challenge. If we do that, then our river will calm down. There won't be so many rapids. Your boat won't turn over, and we should be able to move into the next step, next space. That's the tarot read for energy this week. I do want to throw one other thing in that I just find interesting. Um, if anybody wants to know, pretty much all of the planets that are retrograde will all be in the whatever the opposite of that is as of October 17th. So everything seems to be lining up right in this little moment over the next 10 days, 8 days. I can't count. Is it the ninth? Yeah, whatever. But that's it for tonight. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Well, there
If
you go.
anybody in chat has a question, please throw it out there. And I do want to just show my tiny tarot, unless you have something to say first.
Go ahead, show your tiny thing.
I want to show you my tiny thing, y'all. I'm not embarrassed about it. It works. It makes me happy. You'll see this little thingy. Look at that. That's the back of a tarot card. Don't believe me? You're looking at the Ace of Pentacles. Isn't that just the cutest freaking thing ever?
The camera can't even focus on it.
I know, right? Oh, there we go. That's a little better. I love this deck. It is so freaking funny. This is actually the second one I had. The other one was clipped to a bag that I was walking through Greenville, South Carolina airport. And yeah, it ripped open and spread 78 tarot cards all over the entire floor. And I certainly just kept walking like I didn't notice and went and bought another one. Not in Greenville, sorry. I don't want to die. No offense if you're from Greenville. But that's the tarot for this week. That's my fun.
There you go. There you go.
There you go.
I think I mean for me, like I think I kind of like it definitely lines into, you know, things that I have kind of like going on and things like in my head and shit, you know. So one of the things I kind of wanted to get into talking about, which is this is going to fall on you because you're doing a lot of it recently. I haven't been doing much of any of it. But we are in October.
Shoot.
It is harvest season, and generally speaking, in harvest season, you know, there's a lot of cooking going on. And so sometimes, you know, we don't have time to maybe, you know, plan out a ritual, do a ritual or something like that. But, you know, there's a reason why some people are called kitchen witches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because he's been doing so much of it recently.
Yes.
I wanted Mystic to kind of come in and tell us here how we can use the kitchen as an altar, so to speak. So, go for it. Or you can just sit there silently.
No, I'm going to talk. I was just thinking of a couple of things that were kind of running through my head. The first thing I wanted to start with, hi, Eve Enlightened. I have the best cookbook that has ever existed in this world, especially from a Celtic or Welsh background. Or is it Scottish, British, whatever. It's no offense, but I can't remember which one. Regardless, best recipe book ever. And this recipe book is witch based. It is pagan based, really more druid because this person's a druid, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is not yet published. So can't give the recipes away on that one, but let me tell you, we're the guinea pigs for printing out and doing those recipes. Those are the ones we did, like the Luna bread was something different, but We did soups, and we're doing breads, and we're doing just all kinds of things, and they are lined up by the turn of the wheel of the year. Um, and so as soon as we can get that thing published, like we're trying to help push it as hard as we can because it's the stuff's amazing. Um, so it is so good. I mean, we made potato soup last time. We had pretty much a full feast with baked acorn squash, and I'll get into the ultra thing. Don't worry. We had baked acorn squash with candied apple slices. We had I can't remember what the other squash thing was, but it was really good. And then we did apple roasted pork and all of those kind of things. And so it was really, really interesting and amazing to kind of do foods that are aligned with the season appropriately and have, friends over for feast and all that stuff. And by the way, if they'll let me record it, I will. We're doing a silent dinner for Samhain with a small group of friends at our house. So that'll be super cool.
Say a
Um,
silent dinner.
silent dinner. Yep.
That means you're all gonna sit at a table, eat, and not say anything.
That's part of it, but there's a whole ritual to it. There's a whole purpose and reason, and it's not the whole time. But yes, setting the table for the ancestors to eat off by themselves, as they pass through during the liminal time of Samhain and Halloween. It's very, very cool. We'll get into that. But I am super excited to do that. And the medieval fair is coming up too, which I'm excited about. But anyway, so um yeah, kitchen witchery. So like there's people that actually call themselves kitchen witches. Oh, and we made homemade apple cider too by hand. That was freaking amazing. Anyway, um a lot of there are people who call themselves kitchen witches. I actually have a friend who's like, I am a kitchen witch. He's like, everything is in the kitchen, altars in the kitchen. And that is the focus for them. Mixing and making food and cooking is potion work, tincture work. You extrude things, you make things, you form things, you roast things, you set things. So there's just so much to it. Um, to actually, I think, be I don't care what people call themselves, but that's how he would probably call himself as a kitchen witch. Now, I think a lot of witches practice kitchen witchery though, and as a separate thing, like what we did when we were baking our bread, our altar was our bamboo whatever thing cutting board. And as we mix this stuff, and we did this with the Maybon food that we did, it is the intent still is there. We talk, we have friends over, and we use that as our altar. You, instead of a wand, you have your hands, which you don't need a wand, right? I like them. I think they're neat because I'm a Virgo, so I have like 7 of them. But your hands are your wands. You're measuring things out with your measuring cups and your water and we made with evaporated milk and lemon juice. We made our quote unquote buttermilk for the bread to help the bread rise. And doing that with an intent of not just nourishing us, but bringing the people together was a big part of a ritual in the kitchen. And I just, for me, I love cooking. Rook likes to cook. I don't know if he loves it. I think he does. It is amazingly different when you cook with other people and do it from a pagan perspective and background, right? I just think that changes really the whole entire aspect of what you're doing. And that, why are we using garlic and why are we roasting garlic the way that we're doing it? And what oils and herbs are we putting on it and why? And it's not just for flavor. There's specific things that go together, and you learn that as you go through. Like even using fresh rosemary from the garden, it's different. And being part of that is a huge, huge, huge part of the ritual. Um, what else can I say about that? Recording it is awkward. We're trying to figure out how to do that so we can share it more, just so people can see what we're doing. But even if it's a mess, it's still so amazing to do and to see that you have worked that process through and like made something out of it that I probably wouldn't be used to making. I mean, past weekend we made scrying mirrors, not kitchen witchery, but we made scrying mirrors and we called circle and did it and made it a ritual out of it, made it a whole process that was fun. It's the same thing in the kitchen. you know? So, yeah, kitchen witchery is amazing. It really the big difference between kitchen witchery and just being a cook is the intent and the thought of why you're doing what you're doing from a pagan perspective. Oh, and drawing pinnacles on everything that you can draw a pinnacle on that cooks.
I'm all for that.
Mhm. Pinnacle, pentagram, star, whatever.
Hmm. So I'm actually like in this subject. I'm actually kind of curious. I'm looking it up right now. Um, in so we always hear kind of like a lot about kind of like kitchen witches and things like that, and that kind of really falls into kind of like just kind of base paganism or Wicca or other things like that. And so I was just curious. So I'm like, what about Satanism? Like, what about like left hand path? Like,
Cooking with Beelzebub, baking with Beelzebub.
right?
Dude, we're doing it for
I
real.
think that would be. I think that's could be a thing,
That's a thing. If it's not, it needs to be very quickly.
right? Exactly. Because it's funny because like when you type in like satanic food, like you get like deviled eggs, deviled ham, shit like that. It's like, wait,
Oh
that's not
God.
satanic, man.
So I would think like the choice of herbs would be different. I would probably use a lot more cloves,
Hmm.
allspice, seven spice, um, pepper.
Nightshade.
Um, night no, no. I do have belladonna though. If any, never mind, don't come over. I'll put it in your tea. Shoot, boy, if I ever use that as a method against Rook, then I'm just screwed now. It's documented. Um, but no, like I think that it'd probably feel the same. Like whether it's Satanism or a left hand path. My guess would be it's either just regular cooking or paying attention to the herbs and the spices that you use for a specific thing. I would love to see baking with, and I can't say it right, so I just say it the way I think it. Beelzebub.
I think that'd be
Got
cool.
to.
I think that would be cool. Um, but yeah. Eve. So it's difficult for me to say as I'm not a theist. Like I'm not a theistic Satanist. Like I don't follow Satanism as a spirituality, but a form of philosophy, right? So it's difficult for me to say if they're kind of like restricted to kind of like the demons and devils or gods that they worship. I can't speak on that. I really can't. Though many people would think that my patron deity is the devil, they are not. Um, you know, and I think the advantage that I have being like left hand path is because my spiritual beliefs are Norse pagan. So with that, the deity that I worship in the Norse pantheon is El. Um, so I think that like the Norsemen had a very rich culture of food, especially if you're into like lamb and potatoes.
Some shepherd's pie.
Exactly, exactly. Um,
Gruel. Oh, I'm sorry.
make a satanic shepherd's pie,
Dude, I think that would be freaking awesome.
right?
Like I'm trying to think of every potential alliteration I can with any devil I've ever heard. Um, and it's really like lamb with Lilith.
Lamb with Lilith. That's actually
So we're baking with Beelzebub and lamb with Lilith. I mean, it goes on and on. Like that's pretty amazing.
oh, and then just call the whole thing dinner with the devil.
There you go. I don't have
Yeah.
enough time for all these things.
I think it's something. It's definitely something that I kind of want to look into because like so I'm looking online here, and I think the closest thing is there's a Boston article from Boston.com. And it's entitled "How One Chef is Bringing the Devil to the Dinner Table." and this was from October 22nd, 2018. The chef's name is
Hmm.
Adam Dodge. And he says Satanism indicates rebellion and a passion for romance. He said, which is essentially what a chef wants. I guess. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how you know a chef wants rebellion. Like especially if you ask Gordon Ramsay, it's the opposite of what he wants in his kitchen. Um, so at least from what I've seen. But so basically, like the way that it kind of looks though is like it's more like instead of kind of like creating kind of like dishes that are incorporating kind of like a spiritual element to it, it looks more like kind of just setting up kind of like a themed dinner party, right? You know,
Well, I think that that might give an opportunity though, right, for somebody to do something on that because I think that could really be made into something. There's no reason it shouldn't be.
I agree. Um,
Dude, my brain.
so yeah. So it's guests are asked to arrive in their most formal surrealist attire for $125 a ticket. They will be entertained with a burlesque performance by San Francisco-based dancer Sasandora Leve and participate in an esoteric cleansing ritual inspired by my work in the restaurant industry, said Dodge, which is not his real last name, but the one he uses professionally. He asked to use his alternate name because his family has received threats related to his beliefs. As the official chef of the Satanic Temple, he hopes to replicate this devilish event across the country.
That does sound a little bit like there's a mix of like Satanist, but also like in your faciness,
Uh huh.
of the overall the things that it'd be interesting to see if that would help or hurt the cause if other people thought about it because I think other people would take it and run with it like it's a carnival attraction.
Uh huh. That
And
that's kind of like
that
that
would
would be
bother
like
me.
that's kind of like my worry, like what I'm thinking about because when we talk about kitchen witches, we're talking about actual kind of like using that spiritual energy in the kitchen while you
Mhm.
are making food, endowing your food with the spiritual energy that is
Absolutely.
surrounding you while you're doing these things. And I think it would be interesting. I mean, we've come up with kind of like some clever little names and things like that, little novelties, but in all due seriousness, I think that, it would be interesting to see how anyone in the left hand path, not just a Satanist, but anyone on the left hand path, could use cooking as a way of ritual. And this is another reason why I asked,
Mm.
like, Mystic to kind of cover the topic initially, because I've never actually done any type of ritual work in the kitchen. Like, I've just, I,
It's
I,
so
I make
natural.
food, I see food, I eat food, that's it.
I mean, that's how we've been until like the last month, 2 months since Luna saw, just because we never really pictured it as that. I mean, we cooked all the time, but didn't really, kind of put that part together. We were just again like you cooking for food. Uh, it changed once we kind of got to see that um, recipe book that's being put together because it makes a difference. Like, when we were cooking with the thought of the turn of the wheel and with the intent of what we were doing, it's different. It feels like ritual. It feels so like, when you sit down to eat, it is different. With those people across the table, you feel like you're around a cauldron in the middle of the woods 10,000 years ago. It's different, and I think that intent and that process has been very important. But it does make me just think of something in my brain too. Is there a difference between well, kitchen witchery is kinda like its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's doing ritual and witchy stuff in the kitchen, which is kitchen witchery, but I don't consider myself a kitchen witch. I'm learning to move ritual and my spirituality into every part of my everyday practice, which is newer and easier now, but what about using food in a ritual that maybe is for a not so friendly purpose? Like hexing, banishing,
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole separate thing, I think.
I think so. If I'm not mistaken, if you're going to do that with food and make it with the intention of kind of like hexing or banishing or restricting somebody, like, or binding, I would imagine that the best way to go about that would be to make it and then feed it to the person that you want to bind or banish or hex.
Hmm.
Um, but then you come into the problem that if you're looking at hexing somebody, which means you probably don't get along with that person, you've had encounters with that person already, which means trying to get them to eat something that you make might not necessarily be, the easiest thing, to kind of get done.
Unless it's Joe Smith who keeps stealing your lunch out of the work refrigerator.
Well,
Is putting this is terrible. Don't ever do this. I wouldn't do it because you can get in trouble. But people will put laxative in their brownies because people keep stealing their food and people get sick at work. So you find out who stole your food because you mess with that is a hex.
mm-hmm.
That is mad. Well, it's not really magic, but it is magic. Like you are putting energy out there. It's probably not a good idea either because what if you make two batches and you forget which one's which? That would suck.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just use like different cellophane, I guess. One pink, one transparent,
Cellophane.
right? But I definitely think it would be interesting to see how we could kind of like, or how just anyone in the left, like, in the community of the left hand path, could,
Mhm.
incorporate, that aspects of our spirituality in the kitchen while we're actually cooking.
And do it without being, facetious. That
Mm-hmm.
would be the thing. I'd wanna see, like, for real, like, what would you do? That would
The
be
same here.
very
Like, it's what I want to see.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to see somebody doing like, a theater piece with naked women dancing on the counter, holding like, skulls with candles in it while they're trying to make, fucking macaroni and cheese. I mean, it's
That would
just,
be fun, but it's not what we're talking about, I get it, yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's
Although
like,
not naked women, no offense.
I mean,
But yeah.
that's, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's not, it would be fun to watch, but it's not like that's not what I'm talking about. And
Mhm.
what this guy's talking about here, at least in Boston.com, I feel like this is more theatrical than it is anything else. I mean, like, obviously there's the cleansing ritual aspect of things, which is okay, pretty cool. But, I'm talking about like the whole process, like, from going into the kitchen to cooking the shit, you know, to serving it and eating it.
I just keep thinking of the SHIT pie in,
A shit
freaking
pie?
movie. Yeah. I don't know what I'm allowed to say anymore.
Just the F bomb really is kind of like, especially like within the first like 15 minutes.
I have to set a timer.
um, but the only thing, like, again, like, the only thing that's kind of coming to my mind is, again, the theatrical thing. Like, so when we mentioned the shepherd's pie, right? Or lamb with Lilith, um, is
Dude, you better not that's trademarked now. Brad, trademark it. TM that shit.
um, and lamb is definitely, I think lamb would be definitely something big within kind of like, left hand path and satanic circles. You
Lamb
know,
with goat cheese.
and there you go. Because, like, well, the whole lamb concept in the Bible, right? Um, but the only thing I could think of is taking like an excessive amount of food coloring and making black mashed potatoes to go on top of, you know, the uh, the shepherd's pie.
I have no clue what that means.
What? You have no clue what means?
But Rook just put in the chat. Um,
TM along a dong dong.
anyway,
Okay.
um, oh, I was gonna say so. Oh, I could see that, like stuff like that, but I think that would feel to me a little bit like a little showy.
Yeah, it's like the fucking
What
Halloween
about like
hamburgers at McDonald's and shit.
oh yeah, or peeling grapes and putting them in with like a oil and making people think it's eyeballs if they're blindfolded. I love
Yep.
it. Spaghetti for brain. Oh yeah, spaghetti jello. Anyway, um, like using things that you may not think would go together, like for mashed potatoes, like extra. Like, is there such thing as like a clove spice mashed potatoes or pepper? I just think that it's like for me, cooking is it's mixing and it's intent, so that really necessarily wouldn't necessarily change anything, I think, for in my
Mm-hmm.
brain, because I'm not a Satanist, but if I just wonder, is that a part of what a Satanist would do is in a ritual is mixing and potions and stuff? I would assume yes. And what herbs would they use? They probably would use the same, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't cook with vervain and belladonna and datura and, you know, nightshade.
Yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
guess you
Right.
could, but you might go to jail for that one. But, I'm just trying to think of what would you cook? It would be very neat to try to figure that out.
I think it would be. And I think we need to actually have more people. Like I'll ask. So tomorrow I'm doing. We're doing a live interview with Christoph Bathory. And Christoph Bathory is Left Hand Path. So primarily we're going to be talking about the new album, the Dawn of Ashes is coming out with and things like that. But I will make it a point to ask him about anything that is done in the kitchen.
Is
You
he
know,
vegan, or did I make that up?
I think he's vegetarian.
Vegetarian?
Yeah, like I don't
'Cause, I
think
mean,
he's I don't think he's vegan.
I could see, doing certain things, from that standpoint, to figure ways to make things.
I think it's funny that like everybody like talks about Satanists like killing babies and sacrificing cats and shit, and like most of the Satanists that I know are either vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of the very few like philosophical Satanists, but Satanists nonetheless that actually eat meat. So I think it's funny,
I don't eat meat because 'cause I'm a veterinarian.
So um, so I just think that's kind of funny, and I mean I could definitely feel kind of like I think so.
I'm gonna
One of the
Google something and see what happens.
one
This
of
is
the
gonna be funny.
primary basis within kind of like the Satanic Temple, the Church of Satan, is self-preservation, right? Is becoming the best version of yourself that you possibly can, without hindering the things that it is that you want to do, or things like that. Everyone's vegan? No, I'm not. I am not vegan. And one of the things that's kind of I think that could be done when cooking is endowing kind of like the food kind of like with that intent, right? Like trying to kind of channel kind of like the energy of whoever it is that you're working with in the kitchen to put that energy into the food that you're about to eat, to kind of like physically consume the energy. Because why do we eat, right? We eat because it all comes down to energy, right? All living things need energy, and when we eat we consume the energy of that which we're eating, right? Like essentially. And so with that idea, if you think of things like on that level, on that perspective, what it could come down to is that when you're in the kitchen and when you are cooking, whatever it is that you are cooking, that you are focusing on enhancing that energy aspect to raise yourself to another level while you're cooking, right? So it's not perhaps it's not as much of a traditionalist kind of like idea as it would be for most other kitchen witches, specific herbs and spices and things like that with specific intent, because these herbs and spices, work in that way. Um, but I think it could be done. Like I think it could be done. Um, so
Satanic fudge brownies.
what?
Yeah, it sounds satanic fudge brownies on the Food Network. 4.5 stars.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Um,
Satanic
I
fudge brownies.
don't understand. They look good.
Oh yeah.
Courtesy of Caroline Romansky. Yeah, it sure is satanic fudge brownies. Okay. I Googled what do Satanists eat, and I got poached egg with apple cider vinegar, salt and pepper, and some dill. That sounds very foo-foo to me. I'm just saying.
Sounds pretty nasty.
Y'all need an image adjustment. Of course, deviled eggs. That's so stupid. That one actually kind of makes me mad.
I don't even see. Yeah, it does. It's kind of dumb. Um, like I don't even see
Satan
pictures of
cake.
this fucking.
What's in Satan cake? I mean, what?
I want to see the satanic fudge brownie.
It doesn't show a picture of it. It just talks about how to make it. But there's Satan cake. We're gonna make that. It is
Satan cake.
basically, yeah, Satan cake. It is basically a scratch chocolate cake with one instead of water. It uses 1 cup of very strong hot coffee.
Oh.
That sounds delicious.
Oh. It's a devil's food cake. Yeah.
I love devil's food cake and angel food cake for that matter, the burnt parts.
Okay. Can
But
I
that's
just say
weird.
that this satanic wedding cake looks fucking amazing? Holy shit.
Did
Can't
I
show it
miss
to you,
that one?
chat, but that looks amazing. It's got horns on the top, like fucking black lace type shit going on. Wow, that is awesome. That's
Satan's
one.
whiskers cocktail. I don't know why cock needs a tail. Steve. Okay, it's gin, vermouth, Greminier. Or that sounds like a freaking old fashioned with vermouth. I mean, oh, and gin.
I mean,
I missed
the
that.
only thing
Anyway,
here, like, this is the thing that bothers me though. So, like, for example, I typed into fucking an image search, satanic cake, right? And literally, it's just a bunch of normal cakes with just pentagrams or red and black or 666 on it. And it's like, is it really that the extent of the understanding of a Satanist or somebody
yeah.
on the left-hand path, that it's imagery? That's it?
Peyton Cake and Discord, just FYI. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like I never just Satanism in general, I never knocked any religion except Christianity because it was the one that threw me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting better at even not doing that because I know a lot of people that really aren't necessarily bad and don't follow the things that the way some do. So that's a learning curve on that because it's hard to separate it. But I just never learned about Satanism. I never really heard about it. Um, it was just never a thing. And then you hear like just stuff, and it's just kind of you blow it off, and it's like, oh, well, it's not something specific to me, so whatever. Um, it just doesn't register, to be honest. And I think it probably just doesn't register to a lot of people. And when it does register, it registered on such a superficial level,
Mm-hmm.
that it just I don't know. It's like one time a black cat walked by and then you tripped on the curb, and so the black cat is evil. All black cats are evil when really you're just clumsy and fell because you can't walk right. I think it's stuff like that. I really think that's kind of how it goes, and people just latch onto that, and that's it. There's no more discussion about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't know. And of course, looking up satanic cake, I get the fucking that 2017 fucking article with the Colorado Christian baker Jack Phillips.
Let's not talk about him. Satan cake is in the Discord though, and I'm going to make that.
Is it in the Discord? Hold on a
I
second.
just put a picture under pictures in main. It doesn't look anything special. I mean, it's just chocolate cake made with coffee. Chocolate coffee
Yeah, but
cake.
I mean, see, that's the thing though. Like, I like that. It's an
I
ingredient
do
that
too.
changes kind of like the flavor or direction. It's
Mhm.
not like it's not Satan cake because it has a fucking pentagram on the top of it.
I 100% agree. I would love to know why they called it Satan cake because of that, or did somebody who's in Satanism make it and that's why it's Satan cake? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They call it, just like, I don't know. I don't have a good example, but it's weird. I think kitchen witchery is probably something that would be practiced by Satanists, potentially.
Mm. So I think one of the things, I think one of the biggest things, the reason why we're seeing kind of like a big divide here, like kind of like in general paganism and the love and kind of like connection to kitchen witchery in or witchy kitchery or whatever you want to call it, in paganism, and there's that like divide and that separation with Satanism. Is that Satanism for the longest time has been very, very symbolic. Like, and when I say symbolic, I'm talking about like the symbolism that it uses, and lots of fire and naked people in its rituals. And
Woo!
I think
Party.
you know one of the biggest issues with that though is I'm kind of like realizing now is that there's a bit of a separation between Satanism and nature.
Uh-huh.
Like Satanism has always been kind of based around, you know, rebellion against society,
Shock value.
and going against things and not working with things. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Well,
Um,
I think too, it's a combination of something that happens, and we had a very similar discussion yesterday that falls along these lines. There's a lot of witches, self-described witches, Wiccans, and pagans that don't treat Satanists as part of the pagan community. So, as kitchen witchery and witchery in general becomes more accepted, it's easier to separate yourself from the group that gets the more hate because then it makes you more desirable in general world. Like now it's easier to be open about being pagan and being a witch now. It's not there yet, but it's better.
mhm.
But Satanism is still on I was just one of the articles that popped up, I haven't read it obviously, that came up looking for satanic fudge. Um is that satanic panic never ended. And I'm like, that's actually kind of true.
It is
I
it's
don't think it
100%.
ever
I mean,
ended.
look at the
Yeah.
reactions that I've done over the last year.
And it's just it's sad because you would think that people that are in the pagan community would at least reach out to try to understand it more overall so that there isn't that separation because it's either all or nothing. And I
Hmm.
think you've said that 100 times.
Yep.
Everybody's got to be all of the group or none of the group because none of the group Christianity is they are organized. There's no chance. But
Well,
and
I mean,
that's
that's something
sad.
that I've been trying to preach for, quite a while is that, us as occultists, at the end of the day, like I like using the term occultists, like, because we're
Mhm.
all
I like that.
occultists. Okay. Like I like that term. Like after really thinking about it, like what term, like I want to use to kind of describe everyone kind of like generally speaking that's within the pagan community, I think occultist is probably like the best generalized term to kind of encompass everybody into the community, because it deals with pagans and Wiccans and the Satanists and you know everything kind of falls into it, because at the end of the day we're all practicing the occult. And as occultists, I think it is extremely necessary that we come together and that we support each other, like regardless of like what section or subsection or whatever that you believe in. you know we need to come together. We need to support each other and protect each other. We don't need to be gatekeeping and exiling people because we're afraid of what they believe in, because at the end of the day, if a witch is going to turn, like a pagan witch, is going to turn me away because I say I'm a philosophical Satanist, and basically castrize me because of that, they're no better than the burning times. It's no better.
Nope.
We're doing the same thing that we claim that we stand against. You know, um, I just, for me, I just found my connection on the left hand path, and I like saying left hand path. At first, I thought it was kind of like a gimmick, right? The idea of saying left hand path. I thought that was a gimmick. And I wasn't really kind of turned on to it, kind of like starting out, like when I first heard the term. But as I kind of like began to kind of understand myself a little bit more and understand the things that I believe, I don't like saying a dark path because that has an inherent connotation to it that means something negative, right? And I'm not evil and I don't follow an evil path, so I don't want to say like I follow the path of evil because that's just not true. So when I sat there and I kind of started thinking about things, it made more sense to me to say left hand path because one thing that I've always said, the only difference that I see between the left hand path and a right hand path is that within the left hand path, at least my left hand path, I acknowledge and understand that the right hand path exists. But within that, I also understand that the left hand path exists. And that in that dichotomy, like I'm capable of understanding that we need both light and darkness to live. Like to survive, the balance of the universe essentially is dependent on those two dualities. So those two things, that duality, the light and the dark. You know, the light isn't always 100% positive and the darkness isn't always negative. It's like what the example that I always gave about the flower in the daylight, right? You can see the flower in the daylight. You can appreciate the beauty of the flower in the daylight, but you don't get angry at the night because you can't see the flower. You know that the flower is still there. And you understand that the night brings things that, you still need, right? You need rest, you need rejuvenation, you need regeneration. Healing happens when you're asleep at night. So I think that that's the only difference that I see between, people that are full on right hand path and people that are in the left hand path. We don't deny the light. We live in balance with it. I mean, that's just kind of how I see it. So, I don't know. What say you, Mystic?
What say you? I mean, I get that and I hear it. I agree mostly. I do know a lot of people. I've never. Oh, let me back up. I've never heard anybody call somebody right hand path, so I don't know what that means truly. But I do know a lot of people that are Wiccan, witch, pagan, that are not left hand path that also really look for balance. For example,
Mm-hmm.
the person that's a druid and they really do focus on shadow work. They do focus on both
Mm-hmm.
sides in that balance. So, but I don't know necessarily what like I don't know what right hand path would be.
Well, the only people that I know of that like refer to themselves as right hand path or the right hand of righteousness
Well, that
are
sounds terrible.
exactly are essentially Catholics. I can't even say Christians. I meant maybe one Christian that had the same kind of idea. But most people that I know that refer to what they believe in as right hand path are Catholics. It's the right hand of God. It is the right path, the right
We need to
hand
cook them
path.
a Satan dinner.
Exactly. This cake is amazing. What's it called?
I guess it's like the same idea when it comes down to, oh god, it just flew out of my brain that quick. Shoot. Shiitake mushroom. Uh, oh, I got it. It's kind of the same idea when I have or I know people who are staunchly Christian, especially Protestant or Baptist, Southern Baptist to be exact,
Mm-hmm.
and you know they're like, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, everything's falling apart, but I'm just going to give it to God and God will get me through. I'm like, no, you have to decide to save a little bit of money if you want to buy a house. That's not God. That's your choice. It kind of seems like it's on that similar mindset of, you know, being on the right path of just because it's right. Like
Mm-hmm.
that just pisses me off, kind of.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. But I mean, I use the term for perspective, right? Because many people would consider, there's also people that would consider, for example, most Wiccans to be kind of like right hand path, or, white light, you know, um, things like that. Um, the whole concept, like I remember like when I was in high school and like the early years of college, that was a big thing. When you tell somebody you're a witch, you're like, "Oh, are you a white witch or a black witch?" It's like, dude, I'm just a witch.
Kind of
Like,
peachy off white with lots of ink colors.
it's like, um, and so it's just, I don't know, it's just an interesting concept, like because so one of the difficult things about being an occultist, right, for all of us, every single one of us, all right, is where do you get your information from, right? Most of the knowledge that we could have had, you know, at one point in the past has been destroyed, right? So you can thank, by the way, if for all of you fuckers out there that enjoy celebrating St. Patrick's Day, you can thank St. Patrick for that piece of shit move, because he was the one that kind of went through that whole fucking area, and all the literature and books and everything that we had written down about our history got burnt into piles and piles and piles because of him. And then if you refused to convert, he threw you on the fucking bonfire. Right? The first thing he would do is he'd throw your kids on the bonfire and then hope you would convert. And if you still didn't, then you join your kids. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna convert to the one that, truthfully convert to the one who's murdering people. Sure. Yeah, that's not your
exactly,
tactic.
exactly. So the thing is like, Saint Patrick is a saint because he fucking murdered people. So there you go. So go ahead and keep having fun on St. Patrick's Day, because I'll tell you what, and Ziggy has even backed me up on this. Most people with true, actual Irish heritage don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day
I've heard that. Well, know
precisely for
that. I'm
that
not
fucking
Irish.
reason.
I will say, two things that absolutely. I never really did celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I just used to get pissed off people pinching me for no reason. Like, look, you still don't have the right to access my body, so fuck you, go away. Oops. See, shit, shoot, sorry. Anyway, but the two things, I do feel like there is a space for people to specialize. So for like, and I think this might be a little bit different than just avoiding the fact that there is a balance that should be sought. I do think like a kitchen witch specializes in kitchen witchery, if that's what they do, a hedge witch and trance and, forest witch, all those different kinds. If that's what you want to specialize in, great. I think there is a place for people who feel like their specialization is in that white light section, but not
That's
at the
fine.
detriment. Yeah, exactly. And not at the detriment though of somebody else who's not, or not. They still have to know that there's balance, because when they
Uh-huh.
do 10 years of light work, they're going to be forced at some point to do 10 years of dark work. I think that's just obviously I'm making that up, but just as a balance thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's going to be really important. And the other thing, as a new, when I was younger, obviously, teenager, was really into Wicca, read a lot of books. A lot of that stuff that I believed back then that I've read from books, because it is newer information,
Mm-hmm.
has changed as you experience the ritual and the alignments and the shadow work and the things that you do and the things you do in the kitchen and the things that you make. As you experience those things, it does change. And that popped into my head because of Eve's comment about it's being re-uploaded through our DNA, which I think is very on point comment.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we know how to decipher it very well, we don't, but I think that practice and experience, that reading is great. You should read, you should learn, but you should not take what you read as the gospel unless you have experienced it and it matches, or if you experience something different, you shouldn't cut out that experience as if it's not valuable.
Hmm. No, definitely. I think so. The only new thing that kind of irritates me, and I'm struggling to kind of let it in. Like I'm trying. I'm actively trying to let it in, but it's very hard. It's very, very hard to do.
Just takes a
Is
little bit of time and a little lube.
is that there is a new group of people that I'm noticing online that are taking heavily Catholic concepts and ideas, like heavy Catholic ideas and concepts, and putting a pagan spin on it. So like they're taking like, the Holy Spirit and, the God idea and the angels and things like that, and the whole concept of like everything that the Bible says, they take it, but then they kind of incorporate into certain, like in the gaps, they incorporate kind of like, the pagan stuff. And it's like, like, I don't want to be that guy. But from coming from like a religion that has actively persecuted us over centuries and centuries, and continue to do so actively. Like, I guess some people think it's kind of like fun and ironic. Like they think it's like, interesting. But first and foremost, for example, the Holy Spirit. Okay, the Holy Spirit is the triple aspect of the goddess. That's where the Holy Spirit comes in, because it comes into threes, right? So the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There you go, right? That's the triple aspect of the goddess. That's the maiden, the mother, and the crone, right? That's what that is. Everything that if you dissect Catholicism, especially Catholicism, and generally speaking Christianity overall, okay, about 90% of it is a complete parallel to the Egyptian pantheon, right? Okay. No, you have to understand the triple aspect of the goddess Eve, right? So the goddess is three: the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which is why it is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It is the three, right? The idea of three that draws parallel. So it's not just the Holy Spirit, but it's like the whole thing. And so what bothers me is we're talking about a religion that has literally plagiarized everything that they believe and everything that they practice from occultism and paganism. And again, the closest parallels within, a polytheistic, pantheon is, the Egyptian pantheon, right? And so it's complicated, and it's difficult for me to kind of let that kind of thing kind of like seep in, because it maintains the ideas that have been misrepresented through Catholicism. So, for example, one of the things I talked about before, demons, right? In order to fully understand demons, first you have to understand the vocabulary, right? So that's the first thing, right? So where does demon come from? You bring it all the way back to ancient Greece, and the usage of the words that we currently know as demon and angel are completely different from how we understand them through Catholicism. But people don't want to get off on this theatrical idea of what a demon is, right? People want to kind of be stuck in this mode that like demons are evil and devils and spooky shit, and it's like, go back, go further back, go as far back as you possibly can, right? To figure out where these things come from. because everything in Christianity and Catholicism has been misrepresented. Now, nothing against you if you're Christian or you're Catholic. All the fucking power to you. Don't try to save my soul. I'm good. I'm good to go. All right? Right? I'm going to go to hell in a handbasket. Awesome. All right? Rock on. Okay?
It's gonna be a pretty basket. That's all I'm saying.
So it's just, you have to like kind of like go back and understand the vocabulary. That's the first thing you need to do, right? Because if you try to follow like the Judeo-Christian pantheon, if you try to follow just that, right, and move down the line of where that book was written, their proof that they have for each thing, you begin to realize how tainted all of that is, right? And how untrue it is. So we can't go by the accounts of the Judeo-Christian pantheon. What we have to do is we have to follow the only thing that we can follow, the language, where the translations, right? Because it was translated various times, right? And a lot of things were lost in translation. So we kind of have to follow the language is what we have to do. We have to go down that line. And that's how we kind of figure out where things started to come from. Because if you go into the ancient, Greek pantheon and you look at, demons and angels, one was a messenger and one was like an assistant essentially, right? And of course, like just like in any other faith, they have, their mischievous, side of things, but none of them were actually evil, like caused harm. They might have played tricks and things like that, but none of them were actually evil. So when it comes to this new wave of people, and I don't know how long it's been going on, but for me, it's a new wave of people that are taking, Catholicism and things like that, and then kind of like incorporating kind of like paganism into like, the gaps that they see inside of the book, but they follow the pantheon almost to the letter. I find it very hard to, I don't know, accept that, I just do. I mean, Mystic, what do you think?
There's not a whole lot to say. I mean, I completely agree. I don't follow that usually don't follow that stuff too much, but I mean, there's not a lot to say to that.
And again, I don't want to be that guy.
Seriously.
I don't want to be a gatekeeper, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
Well,
Like, I
that's not
mean,
gatekeeping. I don't think. The truth is what it is. People are going to see it the way they want to see it because they look through their own reference point to see what they want to see. So if you want to see roses, you're going to look through rose-colored glasses, and that's what you're going to find. If you don't have the willingness and ability to question those things, and very few people do, I think.
yeah.
I think we
So,
get stuck in that motto of repetition, um, and hanging on to what's easy to believe because it fits you at the moment and it keeps you out of feeling like you're doing the wrong thing. Like you don't have to have religion to be a good person. Like that's dumb. And I don't know that people realize that. And I've always thought that religion as an organized thing, regardless of the denomination, is truly a social construct that ultimately divides people up. I know that's a
mm-hmm,
comment in the chat too. I completely agree with that. And that's one of the things that draws people to paganism. That's one of the I like Wicca. There's nothing wrong with it. But I separated from Wicca after over a decade because it felt too organized for me.
mm-hmm.
It's still a great thing. I mean, it's still a great way to go and to process, but it got to the point where you had to follow this read, you had to do this, you can't deviate from this. Lavender is only for emotions, stuff like that. And it's just like, I'm gonna go do what I want to do, and that's how we're gonna go.
So there's a conversation going on between, I
I
think,
see it.
Jay
It's
and
giving me yeah.
Eve. So my concept on evil, one, I don't believe that there is an all-powerful form of evil that creates evil for people to act on. I think evil is a perception, right? So, you know, it's like nature. Nature is a duality, right? So just like you can have that beautiful open field, with the butterflies and the flowers and things like that, and everything's great in the valley, you know, the idea of evil would be the hurricane that rips it up and destroys it, or the volcano that erupts and burns it to the ground. It's a duality, and I think in human nature, we are both capable of great good and great evil. We've seen that much, at least in society, that people just can do good and they can do horrible, horrible things. When a young girl decides to take a bucket full of puppies and throw them over a cliff, that's evil to me. When parents don't actually want a child and they neglect their child until it dies, that's evil to me. Those are acts of evil. And I think that I've always said this, that this concept of good and evil is based on intention, right? So if your intention is to cause harm and you cause harm, that's an evil action, right? Because that's your intention. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to, cause harm on some level, right? Whether that's emotional or physical or otherwise. And again, the reason I say it's based on intention is because the example that I always use, it's the most extreme example I can think of for perspective reasons, is that we can generally kind of agree on, a universal consensus that murder is wrong. Murder is an evil act, generally speaking. You go out with the intention of causing harm and you kill another human being or anything, that's, an evil act. But we use the situation where somebody breaks into your home and threatens, the safety, well-being, and life of, yourself and your family. And within, the basis of self-defense and protecting, your physical well-being and that of your family, you take another person's life. You're within that realm, legally and morally, we will sit there and say, well, it was self-defense. And therefore, that act, which we generally can have a consensus on that is an evil act, is no longer evil because it was done out of survival, right? A need to survive and, continue on with your own life. So good and evil is on a basis of intention. What is the intention of the act, right? If you have the intention of causing harm, that's an evil act. If you don't have the intention of causing harm and you cause harm by accident, that just means you're an idiot. Like if you do something stupid without the intention of actually causing harm to somebody, doesn't make you an evil person, just makes you stupid. Or makes you, at least with that which you did, a stupid act. So, that's how I perceive it, right? Because I think that human nature is much like nature in and of itself, right? So generally speaking, nature doesn't do anything with the intention of actually destroying. Nature does things because it has to do it in order to survive. We are the ones that take that to the next level and actually have the intention of causing harm. Nature doesn't intentionally cause harm. Nature just is. Human beings are the ones that bring out the idea of evil, because we are the ones that create evil, not God or the devil, because neither of them actually exist. We are the creators of evil. And, to the point of Jay, we understand good because we understand evil. And we understand evil because we understand good. We understand the dichotomy, the duality, and the difference. Right? We can sit and say, I wouldn't like to be kidnapped and have my arm cut off. Right? I can say that. I know that. Right? By the same token, I can sit there and say that I would love to go for a peaceful walk in the woods. So that is my idea, my opinion, and my perspective, right?
I see it just probably a little bit differently. I do. I mean, I agree with most of what you say as far as, I think good and evil is truly a human construct. It's
Mm,
it's truly something that we've created because it's what we experience through our own frame of reference. There is something in my mind and in my experience that I do feel there is something and things out there that are of an evil nature. Um, I don't know what that is. I don't know necessarily exactly how I would explain it, but I do think that there's an energetic aspect of good and evil. Now, I don't think it's going to call itself good and evil. I think that again comes from human beings trying to describe it with the best words that we know how to do.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I mean, I've been places where there are no people and you can feel evil. I feel that evil based on my perception of it, so it's probably not like inherently evil,
mm-hmm,
but you can feel it. I feel that energy, and it's negative, and negative isn't even a good word for it either, because negative and evil are connotated together, and I don't think that that's fair either. But I
mm-hmm,
do feel like there is more to it than we have the brain capacity to explain or come up with sometimes. From a truly philosophical or humanistic perspective, yeah, humans create evil and good because that's the only way we know how to, I think, really understand it and explain it. But there is something out there that I don't know how to describe or how to explain in myself yet because I don't know that I've necessarily gone down that path far enough.
mm-hmm,
Um, because I don't know how to describe it. But I do feel there is something else out there that we don't know or that we can't explain that is what we would call perceptual evil, based on things around us. But again, I think from a human perspective, things that humans do,
mm-hmm,
there's absolutely things that people have intent for evil. But when the thing that always hangs me up on that is if I have a human being who is, we're going to say, quote unquote, normal, not evil, or there's no specific evil intent for them,
mm-hmm,
and like Phineas Cage, who had the explosive dynamite that threw the rod through his bottom of his chin out his brain, he survived. He started doing really bad stuff to people with intent. He intended to hurt people. Now, because his physical biological body changed, did he become evil? Or what is that? And I don't know. I just know that there is something. It feels like there is something out there that maybe kind of pushes those things around a little bit that I haven't quite um, figure where that's going to come from. And Jurian, yes, it absolutely could. I won't mix words on the idea that I don't know what it is. I don't think it's evil that I might be reflecting out. That's generally something I work really hard on personally, as far as that kind of balance for me. But so I don't think so that it's reflecting out, but it could be because I don't know what it is. You know,
I think
and
so.
I'm okay not knowing right now.
One of the things that I think in response to what you're talking about, I agree with you that there are places that you go and you just kind of feel kind of like this sense of dread, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's evil, to be honest. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't can't think
But
of a right word for
you
it.
can feel something
You
that's
feel, ugh,
uneasy,
yeah,
you know. So my only encounter with anything that ever made me feel that way, and I was completely sober, so I wasn't high, I wasn't drunk, either. So I was completely,
disclaimer.
not intoxicated under any circumstances. I was walking through the city that I lived in with a friend of mine, and we were coming back from the cemetery. We're hanging out at the cemetery, and so we're getting into the downtown area. And there is an area that they call the OPO, which is the old post office. So it's the old post office converted into like a courthouse, and it had a bell tower at the top of it. And it was an autumn evening. Trees, the leaves are on the ground. Trees are pretty bare. Nice, cool evening. And out of nowhere, like we just heard, both of us heard a very loud growling sound, but something that you would hear from a movie, like a demonic growl, right? And both of us, out of pure, I guess reaction to hearing that, just started fucking. We just booked it to the house, and there was no wind, there was no movement, there was no nothing. And then out of nowhere, it was interesting. I mean, I know it's like a scientific thing, and I don't know how to explain it scientifically, but basically, what happened is as we were running, the wind started picking up the leaves and blowing towards us. But like, so it's like the wind was coming, we were running this way, and the wind was coming this way, and we hit into the wind in the trees, right? From the leaves. I mean, not the trees. We didn't hit the trees. That would kind of hurt. But with the leaves. And now I know that that's something that can be explained scientifically, but I think that just because something can be explained scientifically doesn't completely remove its a spiritual nature from it, right?
Absolutely.
We can understand why and how something happens, but when you tie that into other events, it kind of brings about that sense of there's a reason why this happened, right? And we, to this day, I can't explain, where that sound came from, why it presented itself. At the time, there was a part of me that kind of thought maybe it was the flagpole that was kind of moving back and forth. But again, like I mentioned, there wasn't an active wind happening at the time that we heard it. So the flagpole wasn't moving. We didn't see anything. There's no movement. We just heard what we heard and we ran. And it was a sound that, well, it was enough to make us run. Like two goth kids, goth kids in college and university, so we were the freaks, right? It was enough to scare the shit out of both of us and make us run, right? So that is kind of like the only experience that I have with anything that has ever made me scared or nervous or, that is outside of, my own brain playing fucking tricks on me after watching a horror movie, right? Which rarely happens now because I've watched too goddamn many of them. Now I just kind of sit there and say, this is going to happen. They're going to get them. But, so yeah, that's kind of like the only experience that I have. It was weird. I can't explain it. There's nothing that I can think of that would naturally make that sound at the dead of night, when there's nobody around. So, and it's seemingly like it didn't come from anywhere. That's the other thing. Like, it wasn't like you could pinpoint and say it's coming from the bell tower or it's, coming from this building. It was just everywhere.
I think for me, I've had a couple of experiences, but I think the big thing for me is in the frame of reference of good and evil or light and dark or positive and negative. It's just the most benefit that I have come through in that kind of in any of these discussions is that I don't have to know the answer, because if I know the answer and I try to push it, I might miss out or could potentially miss out on really learning and knowing the answer. So I'm okay with not having an answer for myself when it comes to, is evil a separate entity? I don't know. Or am I projecting? I don't know. I have had experiences that lead me to believe no, but could it be a natural response to something? Absolutely. But the thing is, there is enough doubt for me to consider that it's okay, and I may not be the one that knows. Despite all of my experiences, if I experienced everything and shared every experience, I think there's enough evidence for me to say that evil can be a separate thing that's not human based. But deciding to say that and believe that as a truth, I think would severely limit my ability to continue to explore it. And that's the same thing with unexplainable things. I think it's you. you have to get to a point where you're okay with not having the answer, because when you just force an answer on something because of an experience, you do close yourself off to it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what a lot of people in religion have done, because they have the answer already. The answer is God. So I don't need to keep searching for an answer. Well, I believe in my paganism and my experiences, and I, am relatively attuned to the energies that are around me and things that are going on. Probably not the master of all things, um, but leaving that open without having a decision, A, is hard for a Virgo, but it's necessary for me to continue to survive, because then I need to continue looking and finding that information.
Mm-hmm.
So, the experiences I've had, I've seen a full body apparition. I have had night terrors, which do have a biological potential, you know, cause, but not all of them do. Um, I don't see ghosts every day of my life, but do I think that people can speak to spirits and speak to the other? Sure. I do think that. I can't prove otherwise. I'm not going to try to. But when it comes down to really looking at that separation of good and evil, I don't see it as like um, a duality, in so much so the way I think some or most people do. Is it's more of like the explanation, scientific explanation of temperature, for example. Cold doesn't exist. There is no such thing as coldness. It is just lack of heat. Heat is the item of measure. So you're not measuring how cold something is, you're measuring how much heat it has. If it has no heat, it's at absolute zero. And as it goes up from absolute zero, it has heat. It is warmer. Cold is just a perspective, and I kind of see light and dark that way at some points. It's a perspective of what's going on and who's observing it. As a human being, I observe evil as throwing a bucket of kittens all. I don't know if I would ever recover from seeing something like that, or even knowing that it happened. So if it actually happened, don't say it, because I don't know if I could recover from hearing that. Um,
You really don't want me to
but
say anything?
no, absolutely not. I am putting my unicorn vomit foot down. Um, but though, I mean, those things are truly evil. But when you look at the biology of what makes somebody have the capability of doing that, or like eating somebody, um, is that really evil, or is that part of nature too? For people to be that way, or to respond socially to the constructs that human beings have created, um, to act that way. And I don't know, and I don't think it's necessary to know. What's necessary is to keep looking and asking and diving into and figuring out and looking inward and listening and thinking and talking. Those are the things that are necessary. To have the exact answer, I don't think that's the goal. And it's kind of similar to, somebody made a very poignant comment to me. I think I might have shared it on one of the previous podcasts, but I'm all about nature, and don't destroy the crane's nest because it is natural and it has laid its eggs there. Well, I live in a home. I'm a human being. Is my home not my nest? Isn't that a natural thing for me? So the cinder blocks and the blocks and everything that make my house make my nest. That's nature. So where is the line between what is natural and what isn't, what is good, what isn't, what is evil, what isn't? And
Well,
I
I
think
think that
we search
question.
for answers,
So
but
before you go
well,
further, let me just kind of like put my 2 cents into that because that's actually pretty good. That's a good point. You're right. Like your home kind of like becomes like your nest, right? Like and kind of like where
and I never thought of it that way. Somebody had to tell me, like recently.
But I think one of the big things is though is one thing that kind of needs to be understood when it comes to this stuff is the idea that um, we live out of balance with everything around us.
I'm not laughing at you. My dog started growling, and it just was on point timing. Sorry.
So we generally kind of
Oh.
live out of balance with everything around us, and the way that we've created um, our world pushes out things that we would normally live kind of side by side with. Like we've kind of decided to kind of like outsmart everything, right? And kind of expand our habitat at at the cost of, nature's habitat that was already kind of like created. So yeah, you're right. To a degree, like, yeah, like your home is your nest. It's like, you built, like, your cinder blocks are hardly natural, but where you live is where you live, and that's your nest egg, right?
I mean, why
So
isn't it natural? It's made out of everything that's made, whether it's synthesized or not, come from a natural person. I don't believe that. I'm just saying that was this conversation. Like, does using chemicals and putting solar panels on my house to make it less dependent upon fossil fuels make it more natural by making it more technologically advanced? Does planting a plant on my roof or taking, rainwater to support the rain and to reduce my risk, does that make it more natural? It's just it's such a weird rabbit hole.
no, it is. It's a difficult one. So it's it's a complicated situation because the thing is obviously, like, I mean, I live in a house just like what I'm saying, right? It's completely made out of concrete and rebar, right? Is what I live in. I think the issue that happens though is, like, I personally look at kind of like the streets and the cities and things like that as scars on the earth. That's kind of how I look at it, right? Because I do see kind of like, I think of it this way. I think of the earth as an organism, and I see the trees as kind of like the hair and the lungs, right? At the same time, and the core of the earth being its heart and kind of what holds it all together, creating the magnetic field which protects us from like the radiation from the sun and the fact that our atmosphere hasn't blown completely off like Mars. Um, all of these things, work in such a way on the earth the same way our bodies work, right? As a biological organism. Okay. And then it's quite interesting, like when you look at the parallels between the earth itself and us as human beings.
Oh yeah. Leaves and blood vessels? Oh, there's
Mm-hmm.
so many. Yeah,
Exactly,
sorry.
exactly. Lava is like essentially like, the blood of the planet, like, molten rock coming spewing out of, like, like volcanoes are like, this is going to be a disgusting comparison, but volcanoes are kind of like, the earth's pimples, you know. Um,
Actually,
um,
that's probably us. We're the infection.
so it's just, when I sit there and I kind of look at the parallels of all of it, between the earth, how the earth functions as an organism or an entity compared to how our bodies function and work as an organism in an entity, the parallels are fucking unprecedented. The fact that we haven't
Forests
drawn the
breathe.
conclusion. What's that?
Forests breathe.
Uh huh. They
Like, you
do.
can see them breathing and expanding. They just breathe and pulse so slowly, it's hard to see
Mm hmm.
from our perspective.
Mm hmm. No, I completely agree. And so the thing is like when I look at that, it's hard for me to sit there and say that the earth is an inanimate object because there's shit growing out of it, man. Like, like it's like, how could you say that the earth is an inanimate object? I mean, that the earth doesn't feel. So when I look at like what we do to it, it's just kind of like, do I like technology? Of course I like technology. I love technology. But at the same time, it's like, well, shit, you know?
Exploitation.
Mm-hmm. You know, so that it's like you look at it at the same time, but it's like, well, shit, what are we doing to the earth to have all of this? To be where we are?
And I agree with you 100,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I can't argue very well somebody who says, then why do we have the capability? Why are we here? Or if we're searching for meaning in life and searching for it, what is the to me it's overindulgence. I mean, that's the human condition. That's really what's screwed everything up. If we all lived modest lives, then we'd be fine, but that's not how human beings are designed. Hell, I have 200 plus decks of tarot cards. Who the hell needs that? Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
overindulgence. I know that. Um, but it's always made me wonder ever since that part. And this was a recent thing. I mean, this was a couple months ago that came up, and I was just like, that's crazy. Like, do we use more and more technology to develop so that we use less resources? But what about the resources it took to make that in the first place? And then the other thing that came up is I saw a Facebook post today. Well, I don't know why I still haven't deleted it yet because it pisses me off on the daily. And this Facebook post was, "Would you live with in this shack with this that doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi with the person you know you're spending the rest of your life with?" And I opened it expecting to see absolutelys like all over. And I'm telling you, thousands of comments were absolutely not. This is ridiculous. Who would live there? That's terrible. It's a rat race. And I'm thinking the reason I'm generally okay with life and I don't over get freaked out, I don't have anxiety is because I have decided that as long as I have the person I'm with, which by the way, in an hour and 20 minutes is our 14th anniversary,
Oh,
seventh married.
there you go.
Um, but if I have Rook and my dogs, I can live in a box. I can lose my job. I can lose my car. I can lose my computer. I can lose Wi-Fi. I can lose internet. I'm fine with all that. And like we're actually working on trying to figure out how we can minimize and eventually move to another place, that's more in tune with what we believe in and what we think in. But that's never going to stop. That's never going to be the answer to what's going on around us and all the things that are happening. And I find it interesting to see that so many people are so willing to say they can't live without these creature comforts. I mean, we're using
Mm-hmm.
them right now. We're burning fossil fuels to have a conversation about, exploitation of the earth and, how home is our nest and what is really natural and what isn't. And I think in the end, it's not going to matter because Mother Earth is going to say, screw you all. I'm getting rid of you pests, and it's going to reset itself at some point,
Yep.
you know? And is that evil? From a human perspective, it certainly is. If the earth is out to kill us all,
I don't think it is. I think it's self-defense.
I
There you go.
agree. 100%. It's definitely
Yeah.
not evil, but you know what people say.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
go they're
I
gonna
think
say
I
it's
think it's
evil.
kind of goes back to like George. Like there's a skit that George
Selfishness.
Carlin did, talking about the Earth, and he says like if the Earth really wanted to get rid of us, the Earth would shake us off like a bad case of fleas, right? Like one like detail statistic that I kind of stumbled across on the internet that was interesting to me. He's like, did you realize that if every single spider in the planet worked together,
I've
spiders,
heard this one.
yeah, spiders could finish the entire human race in less than a year.
And, just saying that would probably like, if I even hurt like, if yeah, no, I literally almost fell off the side of the deck today because I walked into a spider web for a yeah, no, mm-mm. They'll win. I'm good. I lay down. You done. Finish it. Just give me morphine or something first. I'm not doing it. Mm-mm. And I love spiders. They're amazing. They're great. I like reading about them. They're cool. They're neat. They're pretty. I love watching them build webs. But if I touch one, I'm a ninja. A bad one,
A
but
ninja
a
that falls off
ninja.
the deck.
Yes. Oh yeah, I've fallen into the pool before trying to avoid a spider web. Anyway, I'm sorry I derailed that, but yeah.
No, no,
But you're
I'm gonna
right.
agree. I'm
Yeah.
completely arachnophobic. I can't do spiders. I can't do it. Like except for like the little ones because those ones are kind of cute. But like little jumping spiders, I think those ones are kind of cute. Beyond that, they're
They are
terrifying.
cute.
Like the only ones I can deal with are like the little jumping ones. Like even if they jump on me, I'm kind of like, oh, you're so fucking cute. Like 'cause they're so
No.
little and
Mm-mm,
furry and shit. But like
mm-mm.
the big ones, like the big ones that are like that fucking big, they got their fucking like no, 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 no.
Love reading about them. That's the weird thing. Like I love looking at them and hearing, what they're capable of because they are a creature. I cannot reconcile them in my house.
No.
Just not gonna happen. I mean, I do have a true traumatic experience that I have a
Oh
reaction
yeah,
to them.
you've talked about it. Like multiple
Yeah,
bites. Like yeah,
multiple. I still have the scars on my hands for them. You probably can't see them on the video, but yeah, I
you
can't.
know.
Like it's
Well,
no.
that's why, for example, like here in my house, I have a habit of getting geckos in my house. Like they get in here
Yeah.
when they're little, and then like they get like this fucking big, like big, and they're fast. They're some quick sons of bitches, like running across the fucking ceiling and shit. Like you just see something out of the corner of your eye, you think it's a spider, it's a gecko. I leave the geckos because they eat the fucking spiders. Like they eat them. Like so, when a spider gets in the house, like you know what? So every gecko that's coming to my house is probably hiding around somewhere. Why? I let them. I let them fucking, you know, be in the house because they don't bother me. They don't hurt me. They're afraid of me, you know, and they're coming in here, you know, looking for shelter and some food. Go for it, man. Go for it. Right? You know, let the circle of life, you know, run its course in my own home. Like,
Yeah, no, we get geckos inside a lot, but they don't make it past the dogs and the cat. So,
mm.
and it's ugh, I hate it.
Well, if you have a cat, cats will kill fucking spiders too.
Oh
But
yeah,
the problem with the
yeah,
cat though is like cats will generally try to play with it first, and if they do that, like they can get bit, and then they can get fucking they can die from the bite because they
yeah,
don't kill it right away. A gecko is just gonna run up and fucking kill the fucking thing because it's hungry.
yeah. I get really worried about my dog because I love her. I mean, I have 4 of them, but I love her. And she's not very smart. Like she literally, while we were in the pool today, walked right up to this huge spider web in our backyard and just like put her nose right in it. I'm like, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, but you're on your own.
We talking about the rat dog,
No, this is the big one.
the Samoyed?
Hmm.
Seriously?
Yeah, she's
Jesus,
she's nosy.
literally.
Yeah, my it's funny because my last Samoyed when we lived in Virginia, uh, we had a flowering pear tree in the back, fruit pear tree, and it was dropping all of its fruit. And of course, the fruit was going rotten because we were working so much as nurses, and it was turning into wine. You could smell the liquor from our backyard, and she was out there like kind of getting drunk, got stung in the nose by a bee. Dude, her nose was like it was so sad and funny at the same time. Like her nose got so big, so I'm just waiting for her to come in with one. She'll go right up to a bee and be like, sniff it around. Like, okay, this is all you. It's like a toddler. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
she's only 6 months old, like exactly. So,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
60 pounds of toddler.
60 pounds of toddler. They get big, don't they?
They're medium-sized dogs, I think. You know, like our last two were 55 and 65 pounds.
Full
They
grown.
look much bigger because of all the fur. I mean, they look well over 100, but it's literally just fur.
Oh yeah, okay. So my brain is actually thinking kilos. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, no pounds.
Yeah, no, because
But
like a 60 kilos would be like 122 pounds,
uh-huh.
124 pounds.
She's definitely taller than our other two, but um I don't think she's quite as smart as the last two either.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah, so spiders are not a thing. So yeah, we completely
Nope.
derailed there, but you
We
know.
sure did. I mean, spiders will derail any conversation,
Yep, yep, yep,
but
yep.
I mean, I think it all of this stuff does go together because human beings we have difficulty rationalizing things backwards. We have a really good ability to rationalize things, even if it's not logical or rational,
Uh-huh.
to fit the modus operandi of what we're doing or whatever our thing is that we're trying to figure out. We all do it. It's part of survival of human nature. It's just it's really hard to explain what is natural because we are natural.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think about it often. Like we were having a conversation about medications. Medications. Oh, they're chemicals and blah blah blah. Blah, blah. Yeah, they are. But almost all of those chemicals are just synthetic versions of something you find in nature that's either concentrated. For example, digoxin. It's a cardiac inotropic medication. It is derived from nightshade. Nightshade is the medication that treats people whose heart doesn't work because it makes your heart work.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about what is natural. So is a pill natural? Well, no, a pill's not natural because it's synthesized, but it's synthesized from things that are natural. So everything that is synthesized comes from something that was natural at some point. So where do you draw the line of what that is? And if it's natural, can it be good or evil? If it
Mm-hmm.
can kill you. And what do they say? The difference between medication and poison is dosage.
True.
Yeah, um, and overindulgence of the human condition in any way, shape, or form. For example, and I don't want to go into saying like drugs are good, okay? Um, but people for millennia have used plant-based drugs, in which they are,
Mm-hmm.
and they use them for heightened awareness. They use them for different things naturally and consistently, but they didn't die from it because they weren't dumb like we are now, which our
Mm-hmm.
condition is dumb, and we overuse everything we touch.
Yeah.
Everything we touch, we overuse.
Well, I
I'm bad
think
at it.
I'm a
I
firm
mean,
believer that art is better on drugs.
I think life is better on drugs, but it just is moderation, you know?
Exactly. Moderation's important. But I think like I always like kind of go back and I kind of like think about like artists, like musicians especially, right? Like and if you look at like, the highlight or the peak of a musician's career, it's generally when they were using the most drugs before they stopped, and that's when kind of everything started going downhill.
I have an interesting thought on drugs, and I agree with you 100%. We should pick a couple artists to talk about them. But I believe in my experience, which I have a pretty extensive experience, that now in our current state, drugs, all they do is get us back to where we were when we were in tune
Mm-hmm.
with the things that are around us. I don't think that they alter, well, they do. I mean, you snort an 8 ball of cocaine, you're probably not in good spirits. But
Probably not.
and I'm not condoning drugs, but it's like there are benefits, and there are benefits if they're done in moderation. There are,
Mm-hmm.
and no, but I truly feel like it kind of gives you that gateway back to the where things were at one point. Like I remember what I've seen on doing different things and where that came from. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you're absolutely agree when you look at artistry, like mental illness. And I hate to say it, but people with mental illness or mental health issues, when they're having their biggest breaks, is when the art is the most beautiful. When human beings are at their worst time of their life, that's when the art is the most beautiful, because that art to me is kind of taking, it's that you have a line of 100% and you are feeling at the bottom 1%. That art is the other 99%. That's how you get that number back up. Just not stupid brain stuff in my head, but it really is. It's amazing what people can produce. So, especially on with stuff like that. I mean, I've had some of my best experiences, which I will say no more because I have a license.
I mean, I think that like there are certain
Good point,
situations
Eve.
where drugs definitely kind of like help me see things differently or understand things at a different level, especially psychedelics. um, I know that's like a cliche for artistic creation, like using psychedelics, but like seriously, there's a reason why they're psychedelics, and there's a reason why the Doors were so good. At least when they were still on drugs. um, you know, but I do think that again, the moderation thing is important. Like drinking, you can feel great, having a couple of drinks, but then what happens when you go through an entire 12 pack, or a couple bottles? You no longer feel good. You don't feel good anymore. You feel sick. You feel lost. You can black out and do things that you don't realize that you're doing. You can hurt other people or hurt yourself. You're so moderation is extremely important.
Hmm.
And I agree that there are probably drugs out there that people should never fucking do. Crocodile, stay away from that shit.
Bath salts. We don't need you to eat faces.
Exactly, bath salts.
I can
And
tell
would
you,
you motherfuckers stop eating fucking Tide Pods, please?
like, I don't even think that was truly a thing. I think somebody made that up, and I can't. Just no. But dog's making weird noise. Sorry.
He ate a
I'm not
Tide
going to
Pod.
tell you which, what, or how, or who. But one of my best memories, probably, well, not the best, but one of my top memories was hanging out with a friend of mine, licking a one of those plasma lamps that kind of shocked you when you put your fingers on it,
Yeah,
and like we solved all the world's problems that night, like every one of them.
there you go.
It was
And couldn't remember
amazing.
couldn't remember
And every
shit the
time,
next day.
no, we remembered all of it. And every time the dog barked, I saw things in plaid. Mentioned that before, I think.
Yep, yes you did.
Every time the dog barked, plaid. I'm telling you, everything went plaid. It was so great. Um, and those interactions and experiences and memories truly kept me on board with trying to do better in my life. Like it seriously affected me in a positive way. And it's weird to say that when, it just is. It is
Do
what
you
it is.
realize
It's
that this
different for
episode
everybody.
is going to piss a lot of people off if they get to this point?
Why? Because it's not about the topic.
No, because we're we're
No.
we're advocating drug use.
I am not advocating drug. Well, actually, I am. If we're going to advocate antidepressants, and for people who need them, comment in the thing, absolutely. Antipsychotics, um, cardiac meds to fix your cardiac. We're going to say drink coffee to keep you awake, drink alcohol to depress your system so that you can balance and gel out for a little bit, smoke cigarettes so that you can have an enhanced experience as far as which it does, whether you believe it or not. Then there is nobody that can tell me that you're not already doing it. Like it just makes me drugs piss me off. The whole conversation pisses me off because just because the FDA approved freaking Prozac to reduce sexual urges in people who have sexual behaviors, like who the hell are you to get to say that when somebody wants to go out and do something on their I believe in I mean to me it's not even the drug, it's personal choice. It just does all it comes down to. But I just wish people could moderate better,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, especially in the United States, for some reason, the United States has a habit of declaring war against things that you can never actually defeat.
Would that be part of the righteous right?
Yep. I fully agree with that statement.
Religion is the root of all evil.
Yeah. Yeah. They gave it a name. So, you know.
That was my last
Eve, I'm
drink.
35 and we're not even going to get into how old he is.
Did you just call me old?
Not at all, my friend. Not at all.
Okay, good.
It's not my place to mention your age. That's all.
I'm 40 if anybody cares.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm the youngest one of the relationship. Brooke's older. And
So,
always will be.
yeah.
Somebody did ask me what my secret was, or what our secret was to having 7 years of dating followed by 7 years of marriage, and that is
Fucking every night.
I'm gone most of the time.
Oh, you know.
Um, the key is that, and I truly believe this, that neither of us have ever tried to change the other. He's never been mad when I sit in the computer for 10 hours playing a game versus going out and watching TV with him because I like playing games. He likes watching movies. When our paths cross to do those things and we choose to do them, we have a great time. We have no expectations of each other. We just do things and try to stay happy. That's it. Don't fight about stupid shit. Don't fight about money. If we don't have enough money, one pays. If neither of us have enough money, we stop paying a bill. you know, you just don't. There's enough fighting in the rest of life. That's the answer to that one. Oh my God, Bentley
Noella, I
dog.
already work out about 2 hours every day. So, you know, I mean,
I do not. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle.
everybody jiggles a little bit, man. Like, you know, everybody jiggles a little bit. There's a little bit of jiggle there,
I jiggle.
you know.
I don't have any muscle. There's nothing there. I just need more real estate for ink, so I want to be bigger.
So, yeah. I think for tonight's show, that's going to be it. I think I think today was a productive podcast. Like, honestly, I think there was some fun conversation. There was some interesting conversation. There was some conversation done, that kind of, insights, kind of like personal growth, things like that. Some different ideas,
There's a lot of really good conversation in the chat. That's like the most exciting thing. There's so many things there that I like wrote down to talk about, but you just don't have time.
I know, like you guys are fucking awesome. By the way, like you guys in the chat, you guys are fucking amazing. Like the
Best
way you
ever.
guys, like I love how you guys, like, you're listening and you guys are having conversations with each other. You're having conversations with us. Like you guys are fucking awesome. Like you guys are the best. Like seriously, fucking love having you guys here like every week. So yeah, keep them coming, and I will eventually, I'm hoping maybe this week, make a video. Something I haven't done in a while. I haven't made a video in a while. So,
If not, we need to start bringing random people that are in the chat onto the discussion. I think that would be fun.
well, I mean, Eve keeps saying that Eve wants to jump in on some of the conversations. So
That would be fun. I think we should do that.
And here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing, though. So the one thing I love about this platform, and the one thing I love about what we're doing, right? Both, if and guys, correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably wrong, but go ahead.
Both Eve and Noella, at one point, were very firmly against me.
Oh, I'm still firmly against you if that's the case.
And now they're here almost every podcast. I think that's fucking amazing. I think that is awesome. So
Agreed.
So, well, I have to think about that one. Eve. Like, if you wanted to do it over here, that's fine, right? I can jump on that boat quick and having you on. But have to see your new channel. I've seen very few videos that you've done, so but I'm glad. I'm glad that we've kind of we've grown beyond that, right? So I think it's cool to have you guys in here. I really do.
It's
and
exciting.
I've always you can ask Mystic. I'm always the type of person. I'm always looking for people that disagree with me, because that's the only way I can grow, right? The only way that I can grow is by having somebody that disagrees with me. That doesn't mean automatically that because I talk to somebody that I disagree with that I'm gonna automatically start agreeing with everything they fucking say, but it's something that I'm willing to open myself up to growing and changing, my perspectives based off of new information, right? So yeah, there you go. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this edition of the podcast. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for being here. You guys are fucking amazing, and we will see you guys next week. All right? Peace out. Bye.